The quarantine. Captain Maya Chen stood motionless on the observation deck of the UES Triton, Earth's most advanced deep space patrol vessel. Her dark eyes reflected the starfield beyond the reinforced viewport as she studied Saturn's rings shimmering in the distance. After 15 years in the United Earth Space Force, she developed an appreciation for the quiet majesty of the outer solar system. "Captain," Lieutenant Rivera's voice came through her comm implant, interrupting her moment of peace. "We're detecting unusual energy signatures at bearing 227, range 4 million kilometers. Nothing in our database matches it." Chen was already moving toward the bridge, her pulse quickening. Classification: unknown, but it's massive. And growing. When Chen reached the bridge, the main display showed a swirling distortion in space itself, a spiral of blue-white energy that expanded until it stabilized into what appeared to be a perfect circle of light. "All stations, yellow alert," Chen ordered, sliding into the command chair. "Tactical, maintain distance, but prepare defensive options. Communications, broadcast first contact protocol on all frequencies." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, though Chen noted the tension in their movements. Humanity had theorized about extraterrestrial life for centuries, but the reality was now materializing before them. The portal expanded further, and from its center emerged a vessel of impossible proportions, nearly 3 kilometers in length. Its hull shimmered with a metallic surface that seemed to ripple like liquid mercury, despite being clearly solid. Where human ships were utilitarian boxes with protruding radiators and engines, this craft displayed organic curves that seemed to defy structural engineering. "We're being scanned," reported Commander Diaz at the sensor station. "Multiple frequencies, extremely detailed." Before Chen could respond, the main screen flickered and resolved into the image of a humanoid figure. It had 4 arms and copper-toned skin with a ridge of cartilage where a human nose would be. Its eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle, were solid black with no visible pupils. "Greetings, vessel of Earth," it spoke in perfect, unaccented English. "I am Overseer Talvan of the Galactic Consortium, representing the combined authority of 37 spacefaring civilizations." Chen maintained her composure despite her racing heart. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the United Earth Space Force vessel Triton. We welcome peaceful contact with the Galactic Consortium." The alien's expression remained fixed, but Chen sensed a shift in its demeanor. "Your civilization has been under observation since your development of nuclear fission. The consortium has determined that your species has reached the threshold requiring intervention." "Intervention." Chen carefully kept her tone neutral. "We're honored by your contact, Overseer. We look forward to peaceful exchange off. Our scans indicate your technological advancement has proceeded along concerning trajectories." Talvan interrupted. "Your species has prioritized weaponry development disproportionately to your overall technological progress." Diaz muted their transmission momentarily. "Captain, they're scanning all Earth defense systems. They've bypassed our encryption like it doesn't exist." Chen nodded grimly and reopened the channel. "Overseer, I assure you our capabilities are purely defensive. Earth seeks peaceful relations with all." "Quarantine protocol initiated," Talvan announced, no longer addressing them directly but seemingly speaking to unseen others. "Classification: potential destabilizing species. Containment status authorized." The transmission cut abruptly as dozens of new energy signatures appeared on their sensors. "Multiple vessels emerging," Diaz reported, voice rising with alarm. 83 distinct signatures forming a spherical pattern throughout the solar system. The main screen showed new portals opening from Mercury's orbit to beyond Pluto, massive ships taking positions at strategic points throughout the system. "They're generating some kind of energy field between vessels," Lieutenant Rivera announced. "The field is propagating, Captain. They're creating a barrier around our entire system." A new transmission came through, this time from a different consortium vessel. "Attention species of Earth," a harsh voice declared. "By order of the Galactic Consortium, Your system is now under quarantine. Any attempt to breach the containment barrier will result in immediate neutralization. This measure will remain in effect indefinitely until your species is deemed non-threatening to galactic stability. As the message repeated across all frequencies, Shen watched in stunned silence as a shimmering energy field materialized between the alien vessels, enclosing humanity's home system in a perfect sphere of alien technology. Your confinement begins now, the consortium commander concluded with chilling finality. Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka stood before the assembled military leadership of Earth, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of the alien blockade. 3 weeks had passed since first contact, and the consortium had methodically tightened their hold around humanity's solar system. "Show me the Kuiper Belt cordon again," Tanaka ordered. The AI complied, zooming out to display the perfect geometric pattern of consortium warships. They formed a mathematically precise grid, each vessel positioned exactly the same distance from its neighbors. "They're positioned like infantry on a parade ground," Tanaka muttered, circling the display. General Santos of United Americas Command slammed his fist on the table. "What does their formation matter when each of those ships could vaporize our entire fleet? We should be focusing on negotiation." "They've ignored 23 diplomatic transmissions," countered Admiral Okafor of the African Alliance. "They speak only to issue warnings." Tanaka continued studying the hologram, his attention fixed on a civilian mining vessel that had panicked and attempted to flee the Jupiter colony yesterday. The consortium had destroyed it without warning, -212 lives extinguished in an instant. "Admiral Tanaka," President Xu's voice cut through the argument. The leader of the United Earth government had been listening silently. "You've barely spoken. What's your assessment?" Tanaka straightened and looked directly at the president. At 68, he was the oldest serving officer in Earth's Space Navy, a veteran of the lunar conflict who'd earned his reputation through unconventional tactics. "Madam President, I believe we've been focusing on the wrong metrics," he said. "Yes, their technology outclasses ours by centuries, but their tactics." He manipulated the hologram, highlighting the consortium patrol routes. "Their tactics are rudimentary." Stunned silence fell across the war room. "Explain," President Xu demanded. Tanaka expanded the simulation. "Our analysis team has decoded their patrol algorithms. They maintain perfect geometric formations, adjust at predictable intervals, and respond to threats in linear fashion." He smiled thinly. "They're fighting like an ancient army, not a navy." "What difference does that make?" General Santos scoffed. "All the difference in the world." Tanaka pulled up historical naval battle simulations. Human naval warfare evolved in 3-dimensional environments, our oceans, where currents, depths, and weather created complex battle spaces. "Look at the consortium formations." He overlaid their patterns with ancient naval charts. "No submarine captain would ever patrol like this. They've left blind spots large enough to sail carriers through." "You're suggesting we can breach their blockade?" President Xu leaned forward. "I'm suggesting more than that." Tanaka transferred data from his personal device. A complex strategic plan unfurled across the displays. "Operation Starbreaker. I've identified 3 vulnerabilities in their containment grid. With specialized stealth vessels, we can slip small teams through these gaps." General Santos laughed bitterly. "To what end? Even if we could slip past, what good would a handful of ships do against their armada?" Tanaka's expression hardened. "We don't need to defeat their armada. Not yet." He highlighted a consortium communication relay outside the blockade. "First, we gather intelligence. Second, we disrupt their command structure. Third, we make contact with other galactic powers." "You're proposing interstellar piracy," Okafor said, both horrified and impressed. "I'm proposing naval warfare, Admiral. Something the consortium clearly doesn't understand." Tanaka faced the president directly. "They expect us to either surrender or launch a frontal assault. Either approach ends with humanity subjugated, but they've never faced an enemy forged by thousands of years of maritime combat. President Xu studied the plan, her expression grave. The risk is enormous. If they detect our ships attempting to breach the blockade, then humanity is no worse off than we are now. Tanaka's voice carried the quiet confidence that had made him legendary. But if we succeed, we change the game entirely. The room fell silent as Xu considered the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. How long would you need? She finally asked. 72 hours to prepare the first sortie. Captain Chen has already volunteered to lead it. Xu nodded once, her decision made. You have 48. Make them count. As the War Council dispersed to implement the plan, Tanaka remained before the hologram, studying the seemingly impenetrable alien cordon. To everyone else, it appeared an inescapable cage, but to eyes trained by centuries of naval doctrine, it was something else entirely, an opportunity. Captain Chen hadn't slept in 36 hours. The fluorescent lights of the Naval Academy's engineering lab hummed overhead as she inspected the modifications to her ship. The UES Phantom, a prototype stealth vessel, bore little resemblance to the warship it had been 3 days ago. All metamaterial hull plating successfully installed, reported Chief Engineer Patel. The outer surface will absorb 98% of scanning waves. The remainder will be refracted to mimic cosmic background radiation. Chen ran her hand along the midnight black surface, feeling the unusual texture beneath her fingertips. And the propulsion system, completely redesigned, Patel said with pride. We've eliminated all fusion signatures. We're using supercooled chemical thrusters only, minimal exhaust. Combined with the gravitational assist trajectories Commander Wu calculated, we'll be practically invisible. Chen nodded, reviewing the mission parameters one final time. Operation Starbreaker was the most audacious plan she'd ever encountered, but Admiral Tanaka's confidence was infectious. If human naval doctrine could be adapted to this new battlefield, they might have a chance. Captain, Lieutenant Rivera approached, tablet in hand. Final crew manifest is complete. All volunteers, all the best in their fields. Chen reviewed the names, recognizing many from her previous commands. Good people, brave people, willing to risk everything on this desperate gamble. Time to brief them, she said quietly. T-minus 6 hours to launch. The counterattack. Kill all non-essential systems, Captain Chen ordered, her voice barely above a whisper, though no sound could travel through the vacuum surrounding them. Passive sensors only. The bridge of the UES Phantom darkened as systems shut down in sequence. Emergency lighting cast the crew in a ghostly red glow. 2 sister ships, Shadow and Wraith, followed their lead, disappearing from conventional sensors as they drifted into Neptune's shadow. Lieutenant Wu, formerly the best asteroid miner in the belt before the war drafted him, manually controlled their trajectory using only visual references and a gravitational map. His fingers danced across old-fashioned physical controls. No holographic interfaces that might emit detectable radiation. Approaching insertion point, Wu reported. Consortium patrol vessels maintaining standard formation. No deviation. Chen nodded, studying the passive sensor display. Operation Starbreaker's success hinged on this moment, the first attempt to breach the alien blockade. Admiral Tanaka had personally selected her for this mission, not because she commanded the most advanced ship, but because Chen had spent 5 years hunting smugglers in the Jovian moons. She knew how to move unseen. Begin final approach, she ordered. Lieutenant Patel, status of the metamaterial hull. Functioning within parameters, Captain, the science officer replied. The experimental coating is absorbing 98% of scanner waves. The remainder is being refracted to mimic micrometeorite signatures. The Phantom drifted closer to the invisible line between 2 consortium warships. From this distance, the alien vessels resembled predatory sea creatures, sleek, dangerous, and utterly foreign. Their hulls pulsed with internal energy that rippled like bioluminescence in Earth's deepest oceans. Distance to nearest consortium vessel? Chen asked, tension evident despite her calm demeanor. 800 kilometers and closing. Wu replied. "We're approaching what Admiral Tanaka called the sonar gap, the blind spot between their sensor patterns." The bridge fell silent as the stealth corvette slipped deeper into enemy territory. Every crew member understood the stakes. If detected, they would be vaporized instantly, and Earth would lose its best chance at breaking the blockade. "Diversion package away," Lieutenant Rivera announced from tactical. Transmitting on schedule. Thousands of kilometers away, Admiral Tanaka's diversion was underway. The diplomatic shuttle approached the blockade openly, broadcasting requests for negotiation. Every consortium sensor would be focused on the obvious approach, leaving microscopic gaps in their coverage. Gaps that Tanaka's historical analysis had identified. Entering maximum danger zone, Wu warned as the Phantom glided between the massive alien warships. Closest approach 300 kilometers. Chen felt sweat beading on her forehead, despite the ship's cool temperature. Through the viewports, she could see the consortium vessel's strange architecture, organic curves and crystalline structures that defied human engineering principles. "Someone's looking at us," Paddle suddenly whispered, staring through his viewport. Chen followed his gaze and felt her blood freeze. A consortium officer stood at a viewport on the alien ship, its three eyes seemingly fixed directly on the Phantom. For an eternal moment, Chen believed they'd been discovered. Then the alien turned away, continuing its routine watch. The Phantom was so close they could see individual consortium crew, yet remained invisible to their advanced technology. "They're scanning the diplomatic shuttle," Rivera reported as data streamed across his console. "All consortium attention is diverted." Wu executed the final maneuver, a delicate gravitational slingshot using a nearly imperceptible eddy in space-time that the consortium sensors dismissed as background noise. The Phantom accelerated silently, slipping through the invisible barrier. "We're through," Wu confirmed, allowing himself a small smile. Blockade successfully penetrated. Chen exhaled slowly, unclenching her fists. Maintained silent running for another 200,000 kilometers, then established secure quantum link with Admiral Tanaka. As the Phantom continued its silent journey beyond the blockade, Chen permitted herself a moment of fierce pride. The consortium had constructed what they believed was an impenetrable barrier using technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities, yet they'd been defeated by naval tactics perfected when humans still navigated wooden ships across Earth's oceans. "Send the coded confirmation," Chen ordered. "Signal the Admiral. Poseidon carries a trident." The message transmitted in a brief, nearly undetectable burst. Tanaka would understand. The hunter had become the hunted. Behind them, the Shadow and Wraith followed their path through the gap. Three shadows moving unseen through enemy lines. Operation Starbreaker had begun. Overseer Talvan of the consortium flagship Eternal Vigilance stared at the alert glowing on his command console with mounting disbelief. "Verify this," he ordered his sensor officer. "There cannot be energy signatures outside our containment grid." "Verification confirmed, Overseer," the officer replied, multiple appendages dancing across control surfaces. 3 anomalous signatures detected near the auxiliary fuel depot at coordinates 87 to 234 421. Talvan's skin flushed orange with agitation. "Impossible. No Earth vessel could penetrate our blockade. Their technology is primitive by consortium standards." The main viewport shifted to display the depot, a massive structure housing antimatter fuel reserves for the consortium fleet. As they watched, a brief flash erupted from the facility's southern quadrant. "We are under attack," the tactical officer announced. "Depot shield generators have been compromised." The attackers used kinetic projectiles. Talvan's inner eyelids flickered in confusion. "Kinetic weapons, not energy-based." Another officer interrupted. "Overseer, we're detecting unusual movement within the solar system. Multiple small vessels rising from dormant positions on asteroids and within the gas giant atmospheres." The strategic display transformed, showing 23 new contacts appearing simultaneously across the system. Talvan watched in growing horror as the supposedly contained humans executed a coordinated attack pattern unlike anything in the Consortium tactical database. "Deploy response squadrons," he commanded. "All vessels maintain blockade integrity, while defense units intercept these insurgents." But the human ships didn't behave as expected. Instead of engaging directly, they struck from multiple vectors simultaneously, then vanished into the background radiation before the Consortium ships could lock weapons. "They're using primitive propulsion systems," the sensor officer reported with confusion. "Minimal energy signatures, barely distinguishable from background radiation. How are they coordinating?" "We're jamming all quantum communications," the communications officer added. "They appear to be using directed radio transmissions," the science officer realized. "Our systems filtered them as cosmic background noise." Talvan slammed his appendage against his console. The humans were using technology so outdated that the advanced Consortium systems ignored it entirely. "Recalibrate all sensors immediately." "Filtered nothing." On the tactical display, a human vessel designated Harrier appeared to suffer catastrophic engine failure after a glancing hit from a Consortium patrol ship. The crippled vessel drifted, seemingly dead in space. "Target acquired," the weapons officer announced. "Tractor beam engaging to capture the disabled vessel for analysis." Talvan nodded approvingly. Perhaps this specimen would reveal how the humans had penetrated their blockade. The crippled Earth ship was drawn into the docking bay of the Consortium cruiser Inevitable Justice. "Teams are breaching the hull," the operations officer reported. "No life signs detected aboard." Talvan's satisfaction turned to confusion, then alarm as new alerts flashed across his console. Multiple explosions reported aboard the Inevitable Justice, internal systems failing. Communications lost. The Consortium cruiser drifted out of formation, its systems dark. Moments later, the supposedly dead human vessel reactivated and launched from the docking bay, trailing Consortium atmosphere. The vessel was a trap, the tactical officer whispered. They allowed themselves to be captured. Talvan's mind reeled. Such tactics weren't in any galactic security protocols. The humans had sacrificed a ship to deliver what appeared to be explosive devices, a strategy from primitive ocean warfare adapted to space combat. His communications officer interrupted with even worse news. "Overseer, we've lost contact with the Resolute Doctrine. Reports indicate it has been captured." "Captured." Talvan's voice rose to a screech. "Impossible. A Level 2 civilization cannot capture a Consortium vessel." Yet the evidence was irrefutable. Somehow, the humans had not only breached their blockade, but had now seized a Consortium warship. The implications were catastrophic. "All vessels implement Security Protocol Omega," Talvan ordered. "Prepare for full defensive reconfiguration." As he issued the commands, Talvan felt something unfamiliar: doubt. The Consortium had encountered hundreds of species, but none had ever adapted so quickly or fought so unpredictably. On his strategic display, the human vessels moved in coordinated wolf packs, striking vulnerable targets before disappearing again. They weren't fighting with superior technology. They were fighting with superior tactics, honed through centuries of naval warfare that the spaceborne Consortium had never experienced. For the first time since the blockade began, Talvan questioned whether containing humanity had been a grave mistake. The captured Consortium light cruiser Resolute Doctrine hung in space like a wounded predator. Earth engineers had managed to activate minimal life support and propulsion systems, but the vessel's more advanced technologies remained locked behind alien encryption. In what had once been the command center, Admiral Tanaka sat across from the captured Consortium officer, Sub-Overseer Kellamore. Between them floated a holographic display showing the current state of the conflict, a conflict that had expanded dramatically in the past 72 hours. "Your tactics are unexpected," Kellamore admitted, his translator rendering his complex vocalizations into English, "but ultimately futile. The Consortium has authorized our containment of your species. Reinforcements are already en route." Tanaka nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But before they arrive, I thought you might want to see something. He activated a small device on his wrist. Captain Chen, are you prepared for transmission? Kelmore's three eyes widened as the holographic display shifted to show the Galactic Consortium Grand Chamber, a massive amphitheater where representatives of 37 spacefaring civilizations debated interstellar policy. How did you access this feed? The consortium officer demanded. This is a secure council channel. Tanaka's smile was cold. Your encryption was formidable, but your captured vessel provided the necessary codes. He gestured to the display. The transmission begins in 30 seconds. I suggest you watch carefully. Elsewhere, aboard the UES Phantom, Captain Chen led her team through the final preparations. Their target, the consortium's central communications hub stationed just beyond Pluto's orbit. Lieutenant Rivera had disabled its outer defenses using access codes extracted from the captured vessel's database. Remember, Chen told her boarding team as they checked their zero combat gear, we're not here to destroy it. Precision is everything. The 12-person team, Earth's finest special operators, nodded grimly. Each carried weapons designed specifically for this mission, non-lethal but effective against consortium physiology. Docking complete, Wu announced. Hub security remains unaware of our presence. Chen activated her helmet. Begin Operation Truth. The team moved through the airlock in perfect synchronization, their movements reflecting thousands of hours of training in Earth's naval special warfare programs. Inside the communications hub, the consortium technicians were unprepared for boarders. Earth's team used focused sonic disruptors, weapons that targeted the unique auditory sensitivities of consortium neural systems, to incapacitate the crew without permanent harm. Control room secure, Paddle reported through the tactical channel. Accessing transmission systems now. At precisely that moment, in the captured cruiser, Admiral Tanaka activated the prepared broadcast. Throughout the galaxy, on every consortium channel, and directly into the Galactic Council chamber, the transmission began. Esteemed members of the Galactic Consortium. Tanaka's voice resonated with carefully measured diplomacy. I am Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka of Earth. I speak to you not as a supplicant, but as a representative of a sovereign species that has been unjustly contained. The Council erupted in confusion. Such an interruption was unprecedented. The consortium has missiled you regarding humanity, Tanaka continued. They claim we are dangerous because we have developed technologies in a pattern they find concerning. What they haven't told you is that they've imposed this judgment without any diplomatic contact or cultural exchange. On the display, Tanaka could see various council members turning to the consortium representatives, who were frantically trying to shut down the transmission. We do not seek conflict. We seek our rightful place among the stars. As evidence of our capabilities and our restraint, I offer this. In the past 3 days, we have breached the consortium blockade in multiple locations, captured one of their warships intact, and as you can see, gained control of their communications network. Tanaka leaned forward, his voice firm, but not threatening. We could have destroyed their fleet. Instead, we chose to communicate. Is this the action of a species that deserves containment? From her position at the communications hub, Chen transmitted the final piece of evidence, footage of the consortium destroying the civilian mining vessel without warning or provocation. We ask the Council to review the consortium's decision and to send neutral observers to Earth. We welcome diplomatic relations with all peaceful species. We belong among the stars, not imprisoned in our cradle. As the transmission concluded, Kellamore stared at Tanaka with a new emotion in his 3 eyes. Respect. You understand, of course, the consortium officer said quietly, that this changes everything. Tanaka nodded. That was precisely the point, Sub-Overseer. Humanity doesn't want to fight the consortium. We simply refuse to be caged. The holographic display showed the Galactic Council in uproar, with multiple representatives calling for immediate investigation of the consortium's actions. Others were already drafting proposals for diplomatic missions to Earth. Your naval tactics, Kellamore said with grudging admiration. They are unexpected. The consortium has grown complacent in its technological superiority. A lesson humanity learned long ago, Tanaka replied. The most dangerous opponent isn't always the one with the biggest weapons. Sometimes it's the one with the longest memory. As the first diplomatic vessels from non-consortium species began to approach the solar system, Tanaka allowed himself a small smile. Humanity's stellar gambit had succeeded not through superior firepower, but through the accumulated wisdom of thousands of years navigating Earth's oceans, centuries of naval doctrine, adapted to the greatest ocean of all, the Sea of Stars.